The medical bay doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Dr. Kelly Bennett looked up from her workstation. Her coffee mug nearly slipped from her hand. Standing in the doorway was something straight out of a fantasy novel. A dragon. An actual, honest-to-goodness dragon. Well, technically it was called a draken, but Kelly had stopped caring about technical terms the moment she saw those shimmering scales catching the light like a living disco ball. "Holy crap," she whispered under her breath. The creature was massive. Not building-sized massive, but definitely wouldn't fit in my apartment, massive. Maybe about the size of her old pickup truck back home in Texas. If that truck had wings, claws, and scales that shifted between deep purple and electric blue depending on how the light hit them. But here was the thing that made Kelly's heart do a little flip. This terrifying, majestic space dragon was whimpering. Actually whimpering. Like a puppy that got its tail stepped on. 3 much larger drakens stood behind the youngster, their faces carved from stone. They wore what looked like ceremonial armor, all sharp angles and aggressive design. These were clearly the security detail. The bodyguards. The "don't mess with us or we'll eat your spaceship" crew. Kelly set down her coffee and walked forward, her worn sneakers squeaking slightly on the polished floor. She was still wearing her favorite hoodie under her lab coat, the one with the faded Earthband logo that nobody in the space station had ever heard of. "Hey there, buddy," she said softly like she was talking to a scared cat. "What's going on?" The young draken made a sound somewhere between a growl and a sob. One of his clawed hands was pressed against the side of his face, and even from here, Kelly could see his eyes were watering. Those eyes were huge and golden, with vertical pupils that made him look even more like something from a storybook. One of the adult drakens stepped forward. He was intimidating as hell, with scars crisscrossing his snout and an expression that suggested he'd rather be literally anywhere else. When he spoke, his voice came out as a deep rumble that Kelly felt in her chest. "Human doctor. This is Arwax, third grandson of matriarch Kesare of the Silver Flame clan. He requires medical attention for his tooth." The way he said it made it sound like a royal decree. Like Kelly should be honored. Intimidated. Maybe both. Kelly just nodded and gestured toward her examination chair. "Cool. Come on over, Arwax. Let's see what we're working with." The scarred draken's eyes narrowed. "You will address him as..." "Nope," Kelly interrupted, walking back to her chair and patting the modified headrest she'd installed last month for non-human patients. "In my clinic, everyone's just a patient. No titles, no formality, no stress. Just good old-fashioned dentistry. Now come on, sweetie, up you go." The 3 adults looked like she'd just slapped them. Their scales actually rippled with what Kelly assumed was shock or anger. Possibly both. She'd been working with alien species for 2 years now, and she'd learned that body language was weird across species but facial expressions were pretty universal. But here's what happened next. RYX moved. Without waiting for permission from his guards, without any of that formal posturing, he shuffled forward and carefully climbed onto the reinforced examination chair. It creaked under his weight but held. Up close, Kelly could see he was young. Maybe the equivalent of a teenager? His scales weren't as thick as the adults, and there was something soft in those golden eyes. Something vulnerable. "There we go," Kelly said, pulling on her gloves. "Now, can you open your mouth for me? I promise I won't bite." She grinned at her own joke. Arwax didn't get it, obviously, but something in her tone must have registered because his jaw slowly opened. Kelly had seen a lot of alien mouths in her career. She'd worked on species with 3 rows of teeth, species with no teeth at all, species with crystalline formations that technically weren't teeth but served the same purpose. But draken dental structure was something else entirely. Rows of fangs, each one looking like it was carved from smoky quartz. They caught the light and refracted it, creating tiny rainbows inside his mouth. Absolutely beautiful. Each tooth was clearly a work of evolutionary art, designed for tearing, gripping, and probably conducting electricity or something equally cool. And then she saw the problem. Upper left quadrant, 3rd tooth back. It was black. Not just discolored, but genuinely black, like someone had dipped it in tar. The surrounding gum tissue was inflamed and angry red. Even from this angle, Kelly could see the infection spreading. "Oh, you poor thing," she breathed. "That must hurt like hell." She reached for her scanner, a handheld device that would give her a better look at what was happening under the surface. Her hand passed near Arwax's snout, and she felt warmth radiating from his scales. That's when something unexpected happened. Arwax made a sound. It wasn't a growl or a roar or any of the aggressive noises Kelly associated with dragon-like creatures. It was a purr. A deep, rumbling, almost musical purr that vibrated through the examination chair. Kelly glanced at the three adult Drakens. They were staring at their young charge like he'd just grown a second head. Is that normal? Kelly asked. The scarred one opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. No. That sound is not, we do not. He seemed genuinely at a loss for words. Kelly shrugged and turned back to Arwax, running the scanner along his jawline. Well, it's adorable, so I'm calling it a win. You're being such a brave boy, Arwax. Such a good patient. The purring got louder. Behind her, she heard one of the adult Drakens mutter something in their language. It sounded distressed. Maybe even scared. The scanner results popped up on her tablet, and Kelly's smile faded. This was worse than she thought. The decay had spread deep into the tooth's root structure, which in Drakens appeared to connect to some kind of neural network. She'd need to consult her xenobiology database, but this looked serious. Okay, buddy, she said, keeping her voice light despite her concern. I'm going to be straight with you. This tooth is in bad shape. Really bad. We're going to need to do some work to fix it up. Arwax's golden eyes fixed on her face. There was trust there. Complete, absolute trust. This massive creature that could probably bite through steel was looking at her like she hung the moon. Kelly felt something warm bloom in her chest. This was why she became a dentist. Not for the prestige or the money, but for moments like this. When someone in pain looked at you and believed you could make it better. Don't worry, she said, gently patting his scaled snout. It felt warm and surprisingly smooth under her gloved hand. We're going to get you fixed up. I promise. RYX purred again, and this time he did something that made the adult Drakens actually gasp. He nuzzled into Kelly's hand. Kelly had been working on RYX's tooth for 3 days straight, and honestly she'd never been so exhausted or so fascinated in her entire life. Day 1 had been all about understanding what she was dealing with. Draken teeth weren't just teeth. They were sensory organs. Complex, beautiful, and way more complicated than anything she'd studied in dental school. Each fang contained microscopic filaments that connected to an electromagnetic detection system running throughout their entire body. It was like if your teeth could see and feel radio waves, heat signatures, and emotional energy all at once. The decay wasn't just destroying a tooth. It was essentially blinding RYX to a whole spectrum of reality that Kelly couldn't even perceive. No pressure or anything, she muttered to herself, adjusting the magnification on her surgical scope. RYX lay on the expanded examination platform she'd built using spare cargo containers and a whole lot of improvisation. His head rested on a cushion she'd stuffed with memory foam, and his tail curled around the base of her workstation like he was literally anchoring himself to her presence. The adult Drakens had tried to stay for the first procedure. Kelly had kicked them out within 15 minutes. You're making him nervous, she told them, pointing at the door. And you're definitely making me nervous. Go grab some coffee or something. Come back in 4 hours. They'd looked ready to argue until RYX made a small, pleading sound. Then they'd left, muttering in their language about humans and disrespect and things Kelly chose to ignore. Now it was just her and RYX, with her vintage music player humming out old rock songs from Earth. She'd discovered that RYX liked the music. His scales would shimmer in different patterns depending on the tempo, creating a light show across her clinic walls. Okay, big guy, I'm going to start the next phase, Kelly said, loading a fresh cartridge of nanobots into her injection tool. You'll feel a little pressure, but it shouldn't hurt. Remember, you squeeze that stress ball if you need me to stop. The stress ball in question was actually a reinforced polymer sphere rated for industrial use. RYX's claws could shred normal rubber like tissue paper. He held it carefully in one hand, and Kelly could see him focusing on being gentle with it. He was really trying not to scare her. This massive, powerful creature was actively making himself smaller, softer, less threatening. It was the sweetest thing Kelly had ever seen. She began the injection sequence, watching on her monitor as millions of microscopic robots entered the damaged tooth structure. They'd spend the next 6 hours carefully removing decayed material and beginning the reconstruction process, one molecule at a time. RYX's breathing stayed steady. The stress ball remained uncracked. You're doing amazing, Kelly said, meaning every word. She started humming along to the music, an old tune her dad used to play on road trips. Something about Tennessee and whiskey and leaving troubles behind. That's when RYX started making sounds. Not purring this time, but actual melodic notes. He was trying to hum with her. His voice was deeper, resonant, like a cello trying to harmonize with a guitar. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. Kelly stopped working for just a second, listening. Then she grinned and kept humming, a little louder now. RYX matched her, his confidence growing. They hummed together while nanobots rebuilt his tooth from the inside out. By day 2, Word had spread through the station that the human dentist was doing something impossible with the Draken patient. Kelly's clinic received visits from the station commander, 2 xenobiology researchers, and a very confused reporter from the Galactic News Network. She turned them all away. RYX was her patient and he deserved privacy. What she couldn't turn away was the line of sight from her clinic's observation window. She'd catch glimpses of aliens from a dozen different species, all watching with curiosity. Watching the fearsome Draken warrior curled up like an oversized cat on her examination platform, watching Kelly work with the kind of focus usually reserved for defusing bombs. Between treatment sessions, Kelly would take breaks. RYX refused to leave the clinic, so she brought in a sleeping bag and camped out on the floor next to him. They'd eat together, Kelly working through protein bars while RYX consumed mineral supplements that looked like glowing rocks. You know what's funny? Kelly said during one of these breaks, sitting cross-legged next to RYX's head. People back on Earth used to tell stories about dragons. Monsters that hoarded gold and kidnapped princesses. But you're not scary at all. You're just a big sweetie who needs his tooth fixed. RYX made a questioning chirp sound. Kelly had noticed he made these sounds more and more frequently around her. Little chirps, trills, almost bird-like noises that seemed to express curiosity or contentment. The adult Drakens, when they visited during authorized hours, looked physically pained every time he did it. What's wrong with those sounds? Kelly asked one of them, the scarred one who seemed to be the leader. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, those are sounds our hatchlings make. Before they learn to be warriors. Before they understand strength and honor. We do not make those sounds past childhood. That's sad, Kelly said simply. They're nice sounds. The Draken had no response to that. Day 3 was the hardest. Kelly had to do the final reconstruction, essentially rebuilding the tooth sensory network from scratch using a combination of RYX's own cellular material and synthetic filaments she designed based on her research. One wrong move and she could fry his entire electromagnetic sense permanently. Her hands shook as she began the procedure. RYX noticed. Of course he noticed. He made a soft sound and very carefully reached out with one claw, tapping the back of her hand. Just once. Gentle as a feather. The message was clear, I trust you. Kelly took a deep breath, steadied herself and got to work. 8 hours later she was done. The tooth was rebuilt, the infection cleared, the neural pathways reconstructed. Kelly had created something that didn't exist in any medical database. A completely artificial Draken Fang that functioned exactly like the original. She stepped back, swaying slightly from exhaustion. Okay RYX, let's test it out. Try focusing on the electromagnetic field from that lamp over there. RYX closed his eyes. Concentrated. Then his eyes snapped open, wide with wonder. His scales erupted in a cascade of colors Kelly had never seen before, bright golds and silvers mixing with his natural purple-blue. He could see again. Not with his eyes but with his senses. All the information that had been dark for who knows how long was suddenly flooding back. RYX made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. Then he did something that made Kelly's heart almost stop. He carefully wrapped his wings around her in the gentlest hug she'd ever received, chirping continuously like the world's happiest bird. Kelly hugged him back, her arms barely reaching around his neck. You're welcome, buddy. You're so welcome. Outside the clinic, the 3 adult Drakens stood at the observation window. The scarred one had his hand pressed against the glass, his expression unreadable. Inside, Kelly and RYX stayed like that for a long time, while her music player cycled through old Earth songs and the stars wheeled slowly past the station's windows. When the treatment was officially over and RYX was cleared to return home, something became immediately obvious. He wasn't leaving. The adults called him. Commanded him. Practically begged him. RYX just curled tighter around Kelly's workstation and chirped. The alert came through Kelly's comm unit at 6 in the morning, jolting her awake from where she'd fallen asleep on her office couch. Again. RYX was curled up on the floor beside her, his gentle snoring creating a rumbling background noise that had actually become kind of comforting over the past week. Dr. Bennett, this is Station Commander Pierce. We have a situation. A Draken warship just entered our space. They're requesting immediate permission to dock, and they're not really asking nicely. Kelly sat up, rubbing her eyes. Let me guess. They want RYX back. More than that. The matriarch herself is aboard. The actual head of their entire clan. She wants to see you personally. Great. Just great. Kelly looked down at RYX, who was now awake and watching her with those big golden eyes. In the past week, she'd learned to read his expressions pretty well. Right now he looked worried. It's okay, she said softly, reaching down to pat his snout. We'll figure this out. An hour later, Kelly was standing in her clinic trying not to freak out. She'd cleaned up as best she could, which meant shoving empty coffee cups into the recycler and straightening the stacks of research papers scattered across every surface. She'd even changed into clean scrubs, though she kept her lucky hoodie on underneath. RYX stood beside her, closer than usual. His tail kept twitching nervously. The clinic doors opened and Kelly got her first look at matriarch Kesare. Holy hell. This wasn't just a bigger draken. This was something else entirely. Kesare was ancient and enormous, her scales a deep silver gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Scars covered her body like a road map of battles fought and won. Her eyes were the pale blue of ice, cold and calculating. She filled the doorway completely, and when she moved into the clinic, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. The 3 warrior escorts who'd been watching RYX all week filed in behind her, their heads bowed respectfully. They looked terrified of her. Kelly swallowed hard but stood her ground. She was from Texas. She didn't back down from anyone, even ancient space dragons who could probably eat her spaceship. "You're the human," Kesare said. Her voice was like an avalanche, deep and crushing. Not a question. A statement. "I'm Dr. Kelly Bennett," Kelly replied, proud that her voice only shook a little. "I'm the one who treated RYX. And yeah, I'm human. Nice to meet you." Kesare's eyes narrowed. "You have done something to my grandson. Some human trickery. He refuses to return home. He makes sounds that warriors do not make. He follows you like a hatchling follows its mother." "Explain." Kelly took a breath. "I fixed his tooth. Made him feel better. Made a friend. That's it. No trickery, no weird human technology, no mind control or whatever you're thinking. Impossible. We are drakons. We are warriors. We do not bond with prey species." "Prey species?" Kelly felt a flash of anger cut through her nervousness. "Excuse me? I'm not anyone's prey. And RYX isn't bonded to me because I'm weak or because he's confused. He's bonded to me because I was kind to him. Because I cared." "Is that really so impossible to believe?" For the first time, Kesare seemed uncertain. Her gaze shifted to RYX, who had moved slightly in front of Kelly. Protecting her. From his own grandmother. "RYX," the matriarch commanded. "Come here." RYX didn't move. Instead, he made that chirping sound that had become so familiar to Kelly. A happy, contented sound. Something flickered across Kesare's face. Pain maybe. Or recognition. Her scales rippled in a way that Kelly was learning meant emotional distress. "When?" Kesare's voice was quieter now, almost confused. "When did our young last make such sounds?" One of the warrior escorts spoke up hesitantly. "Not in living memory, matriarch. Not since the old times." Kelly saw her opening and took it. "You know what? Why don't you sit down and let me show you something? I've been doing research on draken history, trying to understand RYX's tooth structure better. I found some interesting stuff." Kesare looked like she wanted to refuse, but curiosity won out. She lowered herself onto the reinforced platform Kelly had built for RYX, which groaned but held. Kelly pulled up her tablet and started showing her findings. Old draken art from Federation archives. Sculptures that were so beautiful they made Kelly want to cry. Poetry written in their language, translated by the station's computer, that spoke of feeling the universe's heartbeat. Philosophy texts that rivaled anything humans had ever written. "Your people weren't always just warriors," Kelly explained. "Way back you were artists, thinkers. You could literally feel emotions and energy through those sensory organs in your teeth. You were empaths on a level humans can't even imagine." Kesare stared at the images. Her clawed hand reached out, trembling slightly, to touch the tablet screen showing a sculpture of 2 drakons intertwined, clearly expressing love or joy or both. "I know nothing of this," she whispered. "Nobody does," Kelly said gently. "It's been erased. Forgotten. And I think I know why." She pulled up her medical scans, the ones she'd been analyzing obsessively for the past week. "The decay in RYX's tooth? It's not natural. It's caused by your training weapons. The electromagnetic rifles you give to young drakons to learn combat. They're destroying the very organs that make you who you really are." Kelly zoomed in on the neural pathways. "Every generation trains with those weapons. Every generation loses a little more of their ability to feel, to sense, to connect. You're not warriors by nature. You've turned yourselves into warriors by accidentally destroying the parts of yourselves that made you whole." The clinic was silent except for the hum of electronics and RYX's gentle breathing. Kesare was staring at the scans like they contained the secrets of the universe. Maybe they did. We have been doing this to ourselves? She asked. For generations, looks like. Maybe hundreds of years. So long that everyone forgot what you used to be. The ancient matriarch looked at her grandson. Really looked at him. RYX chirped again and nuzzled against Kelly's side. He is not broken, Kesare said slowly, like she was working through a revelation in real time. He is healing. Remembering. The sounds he makes, the way he follows you, the trust. This is what we were. Before. Yeah, Kelly said. And here's the thing. I can help. Not just RYX but all of you. Every young Draken who's been affected. I can restore what's been lost. But it's going to take time, resources, and a lot of trust. She stepped forward, looking up at this massive creature who could kill her with one swipe of her claws. I know you don't know me. I know humans are probably at the bottom of your list of species you respect. But I'm really good at my job and I care about RYX. I care about helping people feel better. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Kesare studied her for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She lowered her head, bringing her snout close to Kelly's level. Not aggressive. Respectful. Show me, the matriarch said. Show me how to restore my people. Kelly grinned. Okay. But first rule, in my clinic, everyone's a patient. That means no intimidation, no warrior posturing, and you have to let me do my job my way. Deal? One of the warrior escorts made a choking sound. Nobody spoke to the matriarch like that. Nobody. But Kesare's eyes crinkled in what might have been amusement. Or maybe respect. Deal, Dr. Bennett. RYX chirped happily and nuzzled both of them. Kelly pulled out her oversized toothbrush, the one she'd made for RYX. Great. Then let's start with a demonstration. RYX, show your grandma what we've been practicing. For the next hour, the most powerful matriarch in the Draken Empire watched as a human dentist from Texas taught her grandson proper dental hygiene, humming Earth songs the whole time. And slowly, very slowly, Kesare began to understand what her people had lost. More importantly, she began to believe they could get it back. Kelly's office had never been designed to hold a matriarch, 3 warrior escorts, and 1 very excited young Draken, but somehow they'd all squeezed in. RYX had curled up at Kelly's feet under her desk, his tail wrapped around her chair leg like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. Kesare sat across from Kelly, looking deeply uncomfortable in a chair designed for beings a fraction of her size. But she'd insisted on staying, on seeing everything Kelly had discovered. The ancient Draken had barely spoken since the toothbrushing demonstration, but her eyes hadn't left Kelly's face. Kelly pulled up her research on the main display screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She'd been up until 3 in the morning organizing all this data, surviving on coffee and determination. Now it was time to show them everything. Okay, so here's what I found, Kelly began, pulling up a 3-dimensional model of Draken tooth structure. Your teeth aren't like human teeth. They're not even like most alien teeth I've worked with. They're sophisticated sensory organs connected to your entire nervous system. She rotated the model, highlighting the microscopic filaments running through each fang. These threads carry electromagnetic signals. They let you sense energy fields, emotional states, even the health and intentions of other living beings. It's basically a superpower that humans don't have and can't really understand. One of the warriors leaned forward. We use them to detect enemies in battle. To sense weakness. That's one use, Kelly agreed. But that's like using a master violin to hammer nails. These organs were designed for so much more. She pulled up the ancient Draken art she'd found, images that made everyone in the room go still. Your ancestors used these senses to create. To feel. To connect with each other and with the universe on a level that's honestly kind of beautiful. They made art based on what they sensed. They wrote poetry about the energy flows between people. They built entire philosophies around emotional harmony. Kesare's voice was barely a whisper. I have never seen these images. Most people haven't. They're buried deep in the Federation archives, classified under extinct cultural practices. Everyone assumed your species just naturally evolved past this stuff. But that's not what happened. Kelly pulled up her medical scans, the damning evidence she'd pieced together over days of analysis. This is RYX's tooth before I fixed it. See this decay pattern? It's not random. It's systematic damage caused by repeated exposure to electromagnetic radiation at very specific frequencies. She overlaid another scan. And these are the frequencies your training weapons emit. Perfect match. The room went dead silent. Kelly pressed on, knowing this was going to hurt but needing them to understand. You start training your young with these weapons early, right? As soon as they're old enough to hold them? The scarred warrior nodded slowly. Age 5 in your human years. It is tradition. Every young Draken must master the plasma rifle before they can be considered true members of the clan. Right. And you train daily. 4 hours. The weapons are always active, always emitting radiation, and your kids are holding them right near their faces, near their teeth. Kelly pulled up a timeline she'd created, showing the progressive damage. The decay starts small. Maybe they lose a little sensitivity. Maybe colors don't seem quite as bright, or they can't sense emotions quite as clearly. But it's gradual, so nobody notices. By the time they're teenagers, they've lost maybe 30% of their sensory capacity. By adulthood, 60%. By the time they're old enough to have kids of their own, they've forgotten what it even felt like to have full access to their senses. She looked at Kesare. How old were you when you stopped being able to sense joy? The matriarch flinched like Kelly had struck her. I do not remember ever sensing such a thing. Exactly. Because your parents couldn't sense it either. And their parents before them. This has been going on for so long that nobody alive remembers what your species is supposed to feel like. You've been slowly, accidentally lobotomizing yourselves for generations. One of the warriors made a sound like a wounded animal. His scales had gone dull gray. The training is sacred. It makes us strong. It makes us warriors. It makes you broken, Kelly said bluntly, then softened her tone. I'm sorry, but it's true. You're taking kids with these incredible abilities and systematically destroying them. And for what? So they can fight better? So they can be soldiers. She pulled up more ancient texts. Your ancestors were warriors too, by the way. Really good ones from what I can tell. But they were warriors who could also dance, create, love, and feel. They were complete people. What you are now, you're shadows. You're fragments of what Drakens are supposed to be. Kesare stood up abruptly, her scales rippling with distress. Stop. Please. But Kelly couldn't stop. This was too important. You want to know why RYX won't leave me? It's not because I'm magic or special or because humans have some kind of mind control. It's because I fixed his tooth, and for the first time in his life he can feel properly. He can sense kindness and care and affection. Things you should have been able to give him but couldn't because you can't feel them yourselves anymore. RYX chirped softly from under the desk, and Kelly reached down to pat his head. He's not broken. He's not weird. He's healing. He's becoming what nature intended Drakens to be. And it terrifies you because you can't remember what that's like. The ancient matriarch was trembling. Kelly had never seen anything so big look so fragile. We have destroyed ourselves. In the name of strength, in the name of honor, we have destroyed what made us whole. Not destroyed, Kelly corrected gently. Damaged. There's a difference. Damage can be repaired. She stood up and walked around her desk, standing in front of Kesare without fear. I can fix this. Not just for RYX but for all of you. Every young Draken who's been affected. I can restore their senses, reconnect them with what they're supposed to feel. It won't be easy and it won't be quick, but I can do it. Why would you help us? Kesare asked. We are not your people. We have conquered worlds. We have destroyed species. By your own words, we are shadows of what we should be. Why would you care? Kelly smiled. Because that's what I do. I'm a dentist. I fix things that hurt. And you guys have been hurting for a really, really long time. Besides, have you seen RYX? He's adorable. If all young Drakens are this sweet when they can actually feel happiness, then the galaxy needs more of that, not less. RYX chose that moment to chirp and nuzzle Kelly's leg. Even in her despair, Kesare's eyes were drawn to her grandson. To the joy radiating from him. To the sound she'd never thought to hear again. What would you need? The matriarch asked quietly. Kelly pulled up a list she'd been compiling. Space first of all. I'll need to expand my clinic, probably take over a whole section of the station. Equipment, materials, a team of assistants I can train. Access to your medical records so I can understand the full scope of the damage. And time. This is going to take years, maybe decades to fix properly. And in return? Nothing. I'm not doing this for payment or glory or political leverage. I'm doing it because it needs to be done. Because you deserve to be whole again. All of you. Kesare looked at her warriors. They looked back, their expressions a mixture of hope and fear. Then the matriarch looked at RYX, still chirping happily under Kelly's desk. I am the matriarch of the Silver Flame clan, she said slowly. What I decide my people follow. If I believe this human can restore us, then they will come. They will trust. They will allow the healing. She turned back to Kelly. But I must know. If we do this, if we restore our senses, if we remember how to feel, What happens to our strength? Our honor as warriors? Kelly grinned. You'll still be warriors. You'll just be warriors who can also feel joy and love and connection. You'll be complete warriors. Honestly, that sounds way more terrifying than what you are now. An enemy who can feel empathy but still chooses to fight? That's someone who fights for real reasons, not just because they've forgotten how to do anything else. For the first time since entering Kelly's office, Kesare smiled. It was a small smile, uncertain, like she wasn't quite sure her face remembered how. But it was there. Then we have a deal, Dr. Bennett. Restore my people. Remind us what we have forgotten. 1 year later, Kelly stood in the observation deck of what everyone now called the healing wing and tried to wrap her head around what her life had become. The expansion had taken 3 months to build. What started as her tiny dental clinic was now a sprawling medical complex covering an entire section of the station. Examination rooms, recovery bays, research labs, and even a play area for the younger patients. The station commander had pulled strings with the Federation to get emergency funding. Apparently, the possibility of peacefully transforming the most feared warrior species in the galaxy was worth a substantial investment. Below her, through the observation window, Kelly could see 24 young Drakons in various stages of treatment. Some were on examination tables while her team of human and alien dentists worked on their teeth. Others were in recovery, learning to adjust to their newly restored senses. A few were in the play area, making those chirping sounds that had become the most common noise in the wing. Chirping. From Draken warriors. The galaxy was still getting used to that. Dr. Bennett, we have another transport arriving, said Amy Rodriguez, one of Kelly's lead assistants. Amy had been a pediatric dentist back on Earth before joining the station crew. She'd taken to treating Draken youngsters like a fish to water. 15 patients this time, ages 6 to 14. The matriarch from the Crimson Spine clan is accompanying them. Kelly nodded, checking her schedule on her tablet. That's the 4th clan this month. Word's really spreading, huh? Like wildfire. The young ones who've been treated, they're going home and the adults can see the difference. It's undeniable. These kids are happier, more creative, more connected to their families. The matriarchs are scared of what it means, but they're more scared of letting their children stay broken. RYX appeared around the corner, now serving as the official liaison between the clinic and the Draken clans. He'd grown in the past year, his scales deeper and more vibrant than ever. He wore a translator device that Kelly had designed for him, letting him speak standard without the harsh limitations of his natural voice. Kelly, the new arrivals are nervous, he said, his translated voice still carrying that musical quality. May I greet them? Show them there's nothing to fear? Of course, buddy. You're better at this than I am anyway. RYX chirped happily and bounded off. Even at his larger size, he still had that puppy-like enthusiasm. Kelly had learned that was normal for Drakons who could actually feel joy. They expressed it openly without shame. The adults, though, they were struggling. Kelly had treated over 200 young Drakons in the past year. But only a handful of adults had come forward for treatment. The older generation was terrified of what they might feel if their senses were restored. Decades of being numb had made them forget how to be vulnerable. Kesare was different. She'd been Kelly's second patient after RWX, and the transformation had been remarkable. The ancient matriarch now visited the clinic weekly, not for treatment but to watch. To observe her people's youngsters healing. Kelly had caught her crying once, just standing in the play area while young Drakons chirped and played around her. I never knew, Kesare had whispered. I never knew we had lost so much. Now the matriarch appeared beside Kelly at the observation window. She moved quietly for someone so large. Another successful day, Kesare observed. Getting there. How are you feeling? Any adjustment issues with your sensory restoration? It is overwhelming, the matriarch admitted. I can feel the emotions of everyone in this wing. Joy, fear, hope, pain. It is like learning to see after a lifetime of blindness. Sometimes I wish to return to numbness, to the simplicity of feeling nothing. But you don't want to really. No. Because I can also feel love. I can sense the bond between parent and child. I can feel the pride when a young one masters a new skill. These things I thought were memories or stories. I did not know they were real, tangible forces I could perceive. Kesare paused. I felt RYX's affection for you. It is profound. Pure. He loves you as family. Kelly felt her throat tighten. Yeah. I love him too. Little goofball. They watched in comfortable silence as Kelly's team worked. Dr. James Park was showing a young Draken how to rinse after treatment, demonstrating with exaggerated motions that made the patient chirp with amusement. Across the room, Dr. Lisa Washington was consulting with worried parents, her gentle manner putting them at ease. Kelly had built something special here. A team that didn't just fix teeth but restored souls. The other matriarchs are talking, Kesare said quietly. Not just about bringing their young to you but about changing our entire culture. Stopping weapons training. Finding new ways to teach strength that don't destroy what we are. That's huge. How do you feel about it? Terrified? Hopeful? Both. The ancient dragon's scales shimmered. We have been warriors for so long. We built our entire identity on conquest and strength. What are we if we are not warriors? Kelly considered this. You're still warriors. You're just complete warriors now. You can fight when you need to, but you can also choose not to. You can create, build, love. That's not weakness. That's strength with options. A commotion near the entrance caught their attention. The new group had arrived, 15 young dragons clustering nervously together. Their parents hovered protectively, clearly unsure about this whole situation. Then RYX appeared, chirping a greeting. The young ones perked up immediately. One of them, tiny compared to the others, chirped back hesitantly. Then another. Within moments they were all chirping, that long-lost sound of dragon childhood filling the wing. The parents looked shocked. One mother actually stumbled backward, her scales flashing through a dozen colors as emotion overwhelmed her. Kelly grabbed her tablet and headed down to meet them. Showtime. Want to come? Kesare followed, and together they descended to the main floor. The young dragons were surrounding RYX now, asking questions in their language too fast for Kelly's translator to keep up. RYX was answering patiently, clearly in his element. Kelly approached the parents. Welcome to the healing wing. I'm Dr. Kelly Bennett. I know this is scary, trusting a human with something so important. But I promise you we're going to take great care of your kids. The mother who'd stumbled spoke up, her voice shaking. Is it true? Can you truly restore what was lost? I can repair the physical damage, yes. The emotional healing, learning to feel again, that's harder. That takes time and patience. But it's possible. I've seen it happen over and over this year. And they will still be strong? Still be dragons? Kelly gestured to RYX, who was now demonstrating his restored tooth to the fascinated youngsters, making it glow slightly with electromagnetic energy. Does he look weak to you? He's still training in combat. Still learning to be a warrior. He's just also learning to be an artist, a diplomat, and a friend. He's more than he was, not less. Another parent, a scarred male who looked like he'd seen 1,000 battles, spoke up. We want our children to have what we never had. We want them to know joy. Even if we never can. You can, Kelly said gently. Adult restoration is harder, takes longer, but it works. Kesare did it. Others have too. You don't have to stay numb forever. The warrior's scales rippled. Perhaps. After we see our young ones healed. Then perhaps. It was always like this. The parents came for their children, planning to stay strong and unaffected. Then they saw the transformation, felt the edges of emotions they'd forgotten existed, and slowly, cautiously, they'd start asking questions about treatment for themselves. The revolution wasn't just about the young ones. It was about everyone. Over the next few hours, Kelly and her team performed initial examinations, took scans and began treatment plans. The young dragons were nervous but brave, especially with RYX constantly reassuring them. The parents watched with a mixture of hope and fear that Kelly had come to recognize. By evening, when the new patients were settled in recovery rooms and the wing had quieted down, Kelly found herself back in her original office. It was smaller now, cramped with research materials and personal touches. Pictures of her family back on Earth. A poster of the Grand Canyon. Her worn hoodie hanging on the back of her chair. RYX squeezed in through the door, careful not to knock anything over. He'd gotten good at maneuvering in human spaces. Another successful day, he said, settling onto the floor beside her desk. Yeah. Exhausting though. I need to hire more staff. The Federation approved your expansion request. You can add 10 more specialists next month. Kelly laughed. How did you hear that before I did? I have connections now. Important diplomatic connections. RYX tried to sound dignified, then ruined it with a chirp. Kelly, do you know what the young ones call you? What? The Fawn Keeper. The one who restores what was broken. There are songs about you in 3 different clans now. Kelly felt her face heat up. That's embarrassing. No. It is earned. RYX rested his head near her chair. You changed everything, Kelly. Not just for me but for all of us. My people are remembering how to feel. How to be whole. Centuries of damage and you're fixing it. One tooth at a time. Kelly reached down to scratch behind his scales where she knew he liked it. We're fixing it. This isn't just me. It's my team, it's you helping the new patients, it's the matriarchs having the courage to change. It's everyone. Still. It started with you. With your kindness to one scared kid with a toothache. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the gentle sounds of the healing wing settling down for the night. Somewhere nearby, a young draken was humming an earth song they'd learned. The melody drifted through the corridors, human and alien combined into something new. Kelly thought about how she'd ended up here. A dentist from Texas who just wanted to help people who'd taken a job on a space station on a whim. She'd never planned to start a revolution. Never planned to transform an entire species. But here she was. Hey RYX, she said softly. Yes. Thanks for trusting me. That first day. Thanks for giving me a chance. Thank you for seeing me, RYX replied. Not as a warrior or a draken or a scary dragon thing. Just as someone who needed help. Someone who could be cute. Kelly grinned. You're cute. Even now that you're huge. RYX chirped, the sound of pure contentment. Outside the observation windows, the galaxy wheeled slowly through space. Somewhere out there, more Draken clans were hearing stories about the human doctor who gave their children back their joy. More families were gathering courage to make the journey to the healing wing. The revolution was spreading. And it had all started with a simple truth. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in fighting or conquering or being fearless. Sometimes it's in having the courage to care, to be gentle, to fix what's broken with patience and love. Kelly Bennett, dentist from Texas, had figured that out a long time ago. The galaxy was just now catching up.